Welcome to the CitraZoy virtual field day. We're glad you can join us. And I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Christian. For those of you I don't know, I think I know most of you on here, but there are a few names that are unfamiliar to me. I'm the operations officer for Sod Solutions, and this is Justin Wallace. He heads up a lot of our marketing. And so I'll be hosting the field day today, and Justin will be running a little bit of the operations, fielding some of the questions. Normally at a field day, we would gather at someone's farm. A year ago, we got together at Eric's farm up in Hastings. And if we were able to do this under normal conditions, we'd probably be down with Jordan at JW, touring the field, having lots of interactions, questions, maybe watch a PowerPoint and a video here and there. Our intention is to be able to deliver all of that virtually. But to make this as interactive as possible, we're working within the confines of this Zoom meeting. So Justin's going to explain real quick how you guys can interact in terms of asking questions. So Justin, explain the screen what we're looking at.
So since this is a webinar, guys, you'll see at the bottom of your screen of your Zoom call, on the left, you see a demo of a computer screen, and on the right is a cell phone. There's a little Q&A section down there. If you guys have a question, we're going to keep taking breaks throughout to answer any questions that come in. So Dr. Kenworthy will speak. We'll have a question and answer session with him. Then we'll go into talk about production, and we'll talk to Jordan Breeze. And then Toby will talk for a minute. And any questions you have for those, type them in as we go. And when we hit those breaks, then we'll pose those questions, and then we'll be here to answer them for you too.
Correct. So real quick, let's just review the agenda so we could, everyone understanding of the roadmap for the short time that we're here together. I'm going to give you guys a quick program update of Turf Research Florida and how it started and where we got to where we are now. Kevin's going to give a presentation on some of the research on 1307 and some of the other numbered varieties. We're then going to go down to JW and get some information on Jordan and Warren's experience with producing 1307. We're going to go to a number of trial sites in different parts of the state of Florida. And then I will be giving a brief overview of the licensing and seed stock procedure on moving forward. And then we'll just have closing comments. So real quick then, I am going to go ahead and move on and explain a little bit about the history of the Turf Research Florida program. The Turf Research Florida program was born in 2012, the concept, and it's a collaborative research and development program between these 20 farms, the University of Florida, the turf producers of Florida, and Sod Solutions. And at that time, the idea was Kevin had a lot of germplasm for zoysia, and we thought there was improvement to be made. And so we all got together and decided that we were going to fund this program. And it was a multi-year program that went from 2012 to 2017. And it was actually subsequent to this program, a few years later, that Kevin came to us and said, hey, I've got a lot of advanced lines of St. Augustine that will probably bear fruit sooner than the zoysia program. So a few years after the Turf Research Florida program was developed is actually when a similar group of growers, but a different group of growers underwrote a St. Augustine program. And that is the genesis of Citra Blue. So even though Citra Blue started later and hit the market sooner, it all started with Turf Research Florida for Zoysiagrass. And so a little bit about that. It started in 2012. A year ago, we got together at Eric's farm. There were about 20 of us there, and we reviewed all the data from the 4 advanced lines, which was 1307, 1312, 1313, and 1319. The consensus was the desire to release just one grass for Florida, and the attention really focused on 1307 because it had 4 key characteristics that we all thought set it apart from Empire, which is the dominant zoysia in the Florida market. Those 4 characteristics were earlier green up than Empire, more disease resistance than Empire. In drought conditions, 1307 leaf fired a little bit later than Empire, and it was finer bladed than Empire. We also discussed that we thought 1319 had merit. Actually, the other 2, all 3 of them have certain characteristics, and development's going to continue on that. But a year ago, we were forecasting where we wanted to be in October 2020. Now, none of us could have really anticipated COVID and the year that it's been. But where we said we wanted to be a year ago is that we wanted to expand 1307 with a handful of farms to conduct further production evaluations. We wanted to get 1307 into the hands of some key early adopters in various landscapes throughout the state of Florida. And to our credit, everyone involved in this organization, we have accomplished those two things in spite of the hand that's been dealt us. So kudos to everyone there. Moving on, as you guys have heard from previous emails, 1307 has been commercially released by the FFSP. 1307 has been trademarked as CitraZoy. 1319 and the other two number items are going to continue to be tested and evaluated. But right now in Florida, we're focusing on 1307. 1307 was expanded by JW Turf, who presently has 3 acres of foundation material that's ready as we speak. 1307 has been installed in a variety of trial sites in various parts of the state. Sod Solutions has signed a contract with the FFSP, and the FFSP has also reviewed and approved a producer license agreement with 1307 CitraZoy for producers to sign. The Joint Release Committee has approved the dates for an open license period for the TRF members, so these 20 members, and the Joint Release Committee has approved a deadline for the initial seed stock request form. So that is 8 years condensed into a couple minutes, but that's a program update. So here's what we're going to do right now. Some of that might spur some questions by you. If you have questions, go ahead and start typing them in down below. And while you're doing that, we are then going to turn it over to Kevin. We're going to share the screen with Kevin, and Kevin's going to deliver a PowerPoint from his office. And then when we come back, we will answer questions related to the program update I just shared with you and related to any questions that you might have as a result of Kevin's presentation. So we will go ahead and turn it over to Kevin Kenworthy.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Let's see which Justin,
Kevin, switch your screen. Switch your screen.
That's what I was trying to ask. I wasn't doing a good job of asking. All right. Let me move some things around here. Okay, so again, appreciate everybody joining us today to consider taking on CitraZoy. As Christian just went through, this has been a lengthy process, even that much more so on my end. The plants that were evaluated as part of this group in 2012, I think the crosses were made perhaps in 2007 or 2008, and the seed germinated in 2008, 2009. So this process is more than 10 years old now at this point, which is about normal for a breeding program. So it's good to have something coming out of that. So CitraZoy. This is a picture, I believe, from JW Turf. Their sod field is grown in really nicely here. So a little bit of background here on Zoysiagrass to kind of help orient to you. I believe Christian did mention that this new variety has a finer texture than Empire. So what does that mean? And so there's there are 10 or 11 species of Zoysiagrass actually, and there are 3 that have been of the most important to the turf industry. There's a 4th on here that I left out. It just popped into my head. Icon Zoysiagrass is actually a different species. I think it's Zoysia macrantha. But nonetheless, these 3 have been really the foundation of Zoysiagrass being used as a turf. Zoysia japonica being the coarse textured products, and then most of the fine textured products on the market are Zoysia matrella. Historically, not really much with Zoysia pacifica, except that Zoysia japonica and Zoysia pacifica old term for Pacifica was tenuifolia. So some of you may be familiar with that old term tenuifolia. So Zoysia japonica and Zoysia pacifica were hybridized, and that resulted in the cultivar emerald, which is one of the oldest cultivars on the market. Visual and aesthetics, emerald looks exactly like a matrella, so and behaves like a matrella, but it is a hybrid between the other two species. Now in the market today, on the putting green side, we're seeing hybrids between matrella and pacifica, but that's not really related to CitraZoy or our discussion today. A little bit more background. Zoysiagrass, of course, native to Asia, first introduced to the U.S. in, hang on a second, seeing if I can't get a pin going. No. So Zoysiagrass was first introduced in the U.S. in 1892. So it's been around here a long time. Not a lot of use in Florida until more recently, although the first report into Florida was in 1902. And then C.V. Piper, who was with the United States Department of Agriculture, brought Zoysiagrass again into the U.S. in 1912. And C.V. Piper, he was kind of like Johnny Appleseed of Zoysiagrass. He spread seed around, and a lot of that was actually spread around into South Florida. Those of you that are in South Florida and you see Zoysiagrass growing in some oddball, out-of-the-way place, it's likely the result of what C.V. Piper did 100 years ago. So that's your little trivia tidbit for today. There are lots of commercial cultivars of Zoysiagrass on the market. Even this number 41, that's probably 3 years old. I haven't updated that number, so there's several more on the market. I've listed several here that are Zoysia japonica or Zoysia matrella, and those that are in white are actually on the market in Florida. Yes, we are dominated by Empire in the state, but there are many different Zoysiagrasses on the market. In fact, one of those in black, Ultimate Flora, may still be available. Not sure if it is or not. So there may be one other that should be in white. So quite a collection of Zoysiagrasses produced in the state and available in the market. So there we have now introducing another one, CitraZoy. And so we're going to just have a little bit of information on this new variety. Where does it fall in the leaf texture spectrum? You can see here on the far left that we have Zeon Zoysiagrass, and its fineness very representative of Zoysia matrella. You couldn't if we had some leaf blades of emerald up here, you wouldn't be able to differentiate them from Zeon. And then on the other spectrum, we had the coarse textured Zoysiagrasses that are the Zoysia japonicas over here. And these leaf blades representing Empire, Palisades, and Icon all came out of the greenhouse. And honestly, Empire looks a little finer than Palisades and Icon here, but they're all really very similar. The differences you see here basically had to do with the age of the pots that the grasses were growing in. Most of us looking at these grasses side by side in the field wouldn't be able to differentiate between these three grasses. Now, I've also realized that I incorrectly called Icona japonica. That is the Zoysia macrantha. So I'm recognizing all kinds of mistakes here. But nonetheless, you get the idea about fine textured and coarse textured Zoysiagrasses. And so CitraZoy, which is FAS 1307 and FAS 1319, and two other grasses were released by the university a couple of years ago. And we just kind of decided as a group last year that we would focus more on CitraZoy. It seems to have a little bit better production characteristics than 1319, which is one of the reasons we're emphasizing CitraZoy. But you can see how it compares leaf texture wise and really does bring something new, a new option to the Florida market. And so a little bit of data here. This is from a trial that we've had that's involved these 5 universities, all about assessing for drought responses. And so we have had these, we have 5 Zoysiagrasses here. There were some other experimentals included in this group that are not shown here just for brevity so that the graph doesn't get too busy. But But these plots were planted in 2017 and then allowed to establish for a year. And in April of 2018, we imposed the different irrigation treatments. And what you're seeing here happens to be the irrigation treatment that was only irrigated once a month. So you see this big crash in turf quality here from April to May in 2018. That's because these grasses were all watered really well up until this point. And then it just so happened that when we began to impose these treatments, basically turned the water off until 1 month later when this treatment would occur. That was also when we entered a drought period in Gainesville. So we went from extremely well watered to no water. Approximately 30 days later, we had the 1 month treatment. And so the grasses weren't prepared for it. You know, grasses can, based on their gene expression, adapt to moisture regimes. And so they went from well watered to very limiting moisture conditions in a very short period of time, and they crashed in quality. So it's kind of interesting to see how they recovered. And you'll notice that both Palisades and 1319, one of the other released varieties, recovered very quickly. 1307 here, well, I should say Empire had moderate recovery, and then 1307 is a little bit slower to recover. But once it did, you can see that it began to compete at a higher level. Particularly, one of the things we like is that it does better during the cooler months compared to Empire and Palisades. It doesn't go quite as dormant. So that's one of the key features we were after, was better winter performance with the grass for Florida of Zoysiagrass. And Christian also hinted on that, something about the drought response. What I've learned with this grass is that it tries to hold on and resist leaf rolling or wilting a little bit longer than some of the other cultivars on the market. So you can, when you're limited in moisture, it will last a day or two longer than some of the other grasses. And so maybe we get a rain in that period of time. But once it does wilt or begin to leaf roll, you do need to pay attention to it, or you will have a significant crash, and there will be a fairly lengthy recovery. It doesn't recover quite as quickly as some of the other grasses, but the trade-off is that you might be able to last a little bit longer to get to that rain. But that is an education point. For most zoysia grasses, when they wilt, you don't have to care that much about it. But this one will last longer or resist wilting, but once it does wilt, that really should be a specific clue to the turfgrass manager that they do need to go ahead and water. So it's actually an easy way to manage if you're paying attention to the grass in your landscape or other area where you're utilizing it. A large patch disease. This is one of the things that we're very hopeful about this grass. You never know about diseases until they get out there in a lot of acres and a little bit more widespread use. But indications are that CitraZoy does not get large patch nearly as much as anything on the market, and less so than Empire, of course, the dominant cultivar on the market. What you're looking at here are some in-depth data from Arkansas and also from my location in Gainesville. And you see that we have the 4 released grasses were 1319, 1313, 1312, and 1307. We're showing comparisons to Empire, Xeon, and Meyer. If there's a 1 above one of these colored bars, then that means that that experimental entry was better than Empire. If there's a 2, it was better than Xeon. If there's a 3, it was better than Meyer. And so you can see in Arkansas, which was actually an INTEP location specific for large patch assessment, 3 of the experimentals, including CitraZoy here, this is the CitraZoy bar, all had less large patch than Meyer. And then we had some large patch at the location I was rating in Gainesville. And you'll see that 3 of the experimental lines, including what is now CitraZoy, which actually had the least amount of large patch in the trial, had statistically less large patch compared to both Empire and Meyer in that particular trial. And this was in 2015 in December. And then we also had a really nice observation occur over at Tater Farms. We had put in these 3,000 to 5,000 square foot blocks of several of the grasses with, they were at 4 or 5 locations around the state, and at least 3 of those were on growers' farms to help us learn more about the sod production components of these grasses. And it just so happened that at Tater Farms, there was a major occurrence of large patch on one of the released lines, 1312. And actually, there were 7 of these strips, and every one of them had some level of large patch. I would say 1312 and Empire had the greatest amounts, but there's a little video here. 1307 was the strip directly next to 1312, and you'll see the extensive large patch on 1312 and none on 1307 as the video proceeds. So that was really impressive to us. And so this real world observation in conjunction with some of what we have seen on the plots, the rated plots over here, has given us some good indication that CitraZoy is not as susceptible to large patch as many of the other cultivars in the market. Again, I hold my breath when it comes to diseases. Things can change depending on a given management situation in a home lawn or on a sod farm or golf course or wherever you may be. We're not claiming immunity by any means, but hopefully this could translate into tremendous benefit for the use of Zoysiagrass in the state of Florida. Another thing that's going to be important for sod growers is the establishment rate or grow-in rate. And so what I'm showing here is some turf quality data that was collected in 2020. This was a new fairway trial that was planted in 2019. And that's not to imply that I think 1307 is a fantastic fairway grass. We have a lot of fine textured lines in the program, and we wanted to evaluate them for fairway height. So I included the released lines as well to kind of get their assessment at lower mowing heights. They're also included, I also have another lawn height trial. The fairway height trial got planted much quicker, so I've got better data here for this one. And so you're seeing turf quality here, and you notice really quickly here that 1307, which is CitraZoy, this is, so it was planted in August of 2019 from plugs. These grasses have grown in, and in 2020, we began taking turf quality ratings, visual ratings, and you see that CitraZoy here has the second highest value for turf quality amongst these 27 entries. You see the commercial standard Xeon, which has the lowest turf quality. Anything in this box, by the way, is statistically similar. So basically anything that ranges from a TQ value of 6 to about 7.5 here, they were statistically similar. But nonetheless, you see that CitraZoy is doing very well in this new trial. And I can caveat here is that one of the reasons these groups of grasses are doing so well here is that they established faster than many of the other grasses that have lower turf quality ratings. So this is an assessment that can let you know that 1307 has a good rate of establishment if it's rating well for turf quality this early in a new trial that was established by plugs. And so I'll finish this up pretty quickly here. These are some landscape pictures. This is a landscape installed in Gainesville, and this was installed in March of 2018. And these are pictures that were taken in 2018, and then here's a picture of June of 2020. This is a landscape in the Tampa area that had both 1307 and 1319, and 1307 has been the preferred grass from the homeowner's perspective at this location. This happens to be the home or backyard of Vance Whitaker, who's our strawberry breeder. If any of you grow or enjoy Florida strawberries, he's the man. And then this is a newer installation in South Florida, pictures provided by Jordan Breeze at JW Turf. And in summary here, the CitraZoy has a medium fine texture. We believe that brings a new option to landscape choices in the state of Florida. I don't consider this to be a great fairway grass just because of the leaf texture, although it probably could be used on fairways. But I do see that it could be used in rough areas on golf courses, particularly around tee boxes that may have tree shade and the Bermuda grass is struggling. This grass will blend real well with Bermuda grass, both in color and leaf texture. So I do see some utilization on golf course areas where they may be struggling in higher cut areas that have some shade issues. CitraZoy is shown to have some excellent sod strength. That's been one of the reasons why we've favored it over 1319. And compared to Empire, it has better winter color, better shade tolerance, and we'll say less incidence of large patch for now, and hopeful that that holds true for the future. But again, I keep my fingers crossed for these disease issues, and there are a lot of caveats there that we all recognize. So that's it. I'll open it up for questions. There's a lot of other data behind this, older trials. It was included in NTEP, about 15 locations around the nation, and CitraZoy tended to do well in the southern states, particularly along the Gulf Coast and through to Texas, and then did well in California as well. So that's it.
All right, Kevin, thank you. Thanks very much. I do have a few questions before we let you go in this section. One of the questions we had, and you just kind of addressed it as a shade question. You compared it to Empire there. What does it fall? What can you tell about where it falls on the shade spectrum? It's compared to the really fine bladeds up to the Empire level.
Right, I would expect this, well, from our evaluations, for most of the zoysia grasses that are going to be used in landscapes, that CitraZoy will have a little better shade tolerance than any of those. Now, if you go into the Zoysia matrellas, and those could be used in a landscape as well, they will tend to have a little bit better shade tolerance than CitraZoy, but I'm very comfortable at saying that CitraZoy will have better shade tolerance than Empire, Palisades, Icon, Jammer, the 4 coarse textured zoysia grasses on the market, and I can throw in Ultimate Flora as well as another coarse textured variety on the market. So I feel when it comes to shade that will be a strength of CitraZoy for landscape use of a zoysia grass that's not a fine textured zoysia matrella.
Another question, and Kevin, this is really more for me. I have Empire in my front yard. You already talked a little bit about the early spring green up. Have you noticed any difference with CitraZoy on fall color retention? I guess that talks a little bit about cold tolerance or when it tends to go off color. Have you seen any difference in fall color retention?
Right, that's really one of the major attractions with this grass. We saw this very early on in our testing that when you get into some of these areas of the state of Florida where zoysia grass will begin to shut down a little bit sooner than a homeowner may prefer, CitraZoy will hold on a little bit better. Now, it's not like a St. Augustine grass. Let's not, let's not lie about it, but it is better and does have a little better color in the winter than Empire. And so I think that's another advantage, but certainly not at the level of St. Augustine grass in the winter.
Okay, so I don't think we have any other questions related to your section, Kevin. There was a question that came in related to my summary, and the question was, who's on the Joint Release Committee? There actually are 2 joint release committees. There's the Joint Release Committee for like latitude and celebration, let's just say non-UF grasses. And that Joint Release Committee is a committee of 5. And it is Betsy, the executive director, the sitting president, who at this time is Travis Council, and then Paul Gross is the at-large member appointed by the board. And then generally it's been Toby and I. So that's a 5 vote. And then for the UF grasses, for CitraZoy and for Citra Blue, there's an additional 2 seats filled by UF. And that's been in here recently as we've been making decisions. It's been Jim Holm and John Butenmiller. And then Kevin is often kind of an ex officio non-voting, but he's always a part of the meetings because we're making decisions. So that answers that question. So again, if you have any other questions, continue to submit them. So what we're going to do now is we are actually going to go out to the field and we're going to go down to JW Turf and watch a video from there and gather information from Jordan on their experience with CitraZoy from a production point of view.
Yep, let me get in real quickly here. Sorry, let me share my screen with everyone, and I'm going to go ahead and go wide on this. All right, so this is going to be Jordan Breeze, and Toby's at the farm, so here we go.
This is Toby Wagner, Sod Solutions. I'm looking at CitraZoy Zoysia from the University of Florida. The number on that is 1307 if you're looking at some of the research. I've got Jordan Breeze here with me from JW Turf Farms, and I've got Gary Bradshaw from Sod Solutions. And Jordan's going to talk a little bit about the CitraZoy, kind of what he's seen.
We like this grass a lot. It's a kind of a medium blade, medium textured zoysia. It's been very low maintenance for us. We haven't had to do a whole lot to it other than just keep it mowed. And it's recovering fairly quickly for a zoysia, which we're happy about. We haven't had to put any fungicide on it. We recently expanded this in late April, early May, and then it's already come back to this through the summer. So we're staying on it with mowing, but we're real happy with it. This is a field that we expanded to back in late April, and it has done very well. It's late September now. So with about 5 months of growth, we've been really happy with it. It's ready to be harvested in most of the field, and it blocks very well. So we're real happy with its tensile strength and how well it holds on the pallet, and we're excited to start moving it.
Yeah, it's just exciting to see a zoysia that comes out of the University of Florida that shows good tolerance to disease, and you can mow it tight. It's got kind of it's a fine texture compared to most Florida turf grasses, but it's kind of a medium fine zoysia grass. Again, Toby Wagner, Jordan Breeze, Gary Bradshaw here at JW Turf, looking at CitraZoy Zoysiagrass, which is FAES 1307. This grass here will actually be part of the planting stock that will be used for other sod growers that were in the research and development program that was led by Dr. Kevin Kenworthy.
Okay, so so Jordan Breeze is with us today. If you can jump on here with your video and your audio, so we can ask you a few questions about what we just saw. If you're there, let me send. There you go. All right, speak, Jordan. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
We are good.
Perfect.
So, Christian, you want to start off?
Yeah.
Question?
So Jordan, I mean, just supplement that video with any other information you think a sod farm is going to be interested in knowing about growing in, maintaining, and harvesting it and regrowing in 1307.
Sure. I'll start with answering Travis's counsel's question there about the mowing height that we were looking at. That was right about an inch there. We have been getting all this rain in September, so it was a little taller than we'd like to keep it at. And another thing I kind of wanted to just talk about before we get too far was the residential area that you guys had seen in Dr. Kenworthy's presentation. That area was right down the street from me. I wanted to put it to someone local that I knew, and I know him well. I know he won't take very good care of it, and kind of wanted to put it through the fire and see how it does. And that was in his front circle of his driveway, and he had just re-landscaped it. You can see it does get some shade from the amount of trees that he has there. But it has done really well. It was harvested. It was only about 3 or 4 pallets. It blocked very well. We were happy with how well it blocked when we harvested it. We transported it over there late in April, and the picture that you guys saw was May 9th. So it was exactly 1 month away after we sent it that you saw in his presentation. The height of cut when we sent it was very tall. Again, we had a lot of rain on it. We were having a hard time getting it mowed. I think it was about 2 to 2.5 inches when we harvested and sold it, or not sold it, but and put it in over there. Higher than we wanted it to be, obviously, but wanted to kind of see how the customer dealt with it. So once he got it in, he is not using a real mower at all. That's all rotary mower, standard push. I think he has a snapper. He doesn't do anything too crazy with it, and it still looks very good. The the friend of mine, he just reached out to me, and I asked him if he's put any fertilizer on it or fungicide or anything. He hasn't touched it. All he's done is mow it and water it, and that's it. So he's about to start that. He's about to put out some fungicide and do a little bit of fertilizer to green it up a little bit. It's still doing well. He's very happy with it. And again, it's only been there since April, so don't have long-term there at that site yet. And that's in Tequesta, Florida, if you are curious where that's at. Now, for the production side, over at our farm, we first planted it through plugs. Dr. Kinworthy and I and Addison got out there and put a bunch of plugs in. I think we had 100 trays of 1307, 100 trays of 1319 to give us about an acre of each. And we, that was October 2018. And grew in fairly okay. It was okay. It was during the winter, so a little bit longer as expected because it was a little bit of a colder winter. And then we first time we actually harvested it was April of 2020 when we sent some over to my friend's house down the road. Since then we have expanded it, and when we expanded it, we dug conventional sprigs, which also dug very well. We have test cut it one or two other times just to make sure the blocking was still good. We test cut it with an auto stacker, which did great, and with our manual stackers, which also did very well. And you could see that the other field, which they are close together, but the other field there is about 3 acres or 2.5 to 3 acres. It grew in nice and quick, 5 months. It was just at the point of being harvestable and ready to go. And in September, looks even better now. One thing that we love about it, we've been kind of testing it to see how it does, and it has had not a single drop of fungicide on it. We've put no fungicide on the block at all. We've had a lot of rain. We haven't had any problems even recently. We haven't had any issues with it. We're kind of waiting to see what happens and see how resistant it is. For fertility, very standard. Watering, very standard. It's very close to another Bermuda grass that we have, a large Bermuda field. It's on the same linear overhead irrigation, and that overhead irrigation hits both my Bermuda grass and the CitraZoy. So we've been kind of watering it on the same schedule as that, and actually fertilizing on the same schedule as that. We haven't really had any problems with insects. We do a standard insecticide program on it, and we haven't really seen anything in there. We will see the mole crickets not necessarily get into that field, but near it, and some other turfs that are near that, but they haven't really gone into that field at all. And we're really excited about it. We think it's, we have, I think, 6 zoysias, and out of the 6, my farm manager, he likes this one the best because he said he spends very little time in there. He doesn't have to do a whole lot to it. So we're happy with it. We're hoping that it does really well and continues to take off, and ready to go.
Jordan, one question I have for you, because obviously you have all those different zoysias, but I'm interested to know how it compares to Empire in this regard. You said you harvested that via sprigs and then you planted it and it grew in. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about how that one field grew in, the one that you harvested the sprigs from, from your experience and compared to Empire. Do you think is this going to lend itself to quicker production turns, all things being equal, than Empire, or is it about the same for you?
I feel like it's very similar. It's about the same. We feel like we can push Empire pretty quick and get it growing pretty quick. And we felt the same with this. We felt that we were able to kind of be aggressive on our grow in and push this turf. And we were able to get it in 5 months. I know it was a summer, but still 5 months for zoysia. We're happy with that. We like that a lot, to be able to get it to block by then.
You also spoke a little bit about your neighbor, Chris, the one that you actually installed. And so we'll be talking about in the section, I think is the first trial site presentation that we're going to, Justin.
It's going to be the North Florida.
The North Florida. So a little bit of preview on this. This is material that came from Eric's farm up in Hastings, and Toby and Eric were able to exchange that information. This was at the height of COVID, and Toby was able to go down there and capture some video. So let's go ahead and watch this video. This, I think, is our northernmost site for trial, and then we'll take a look at it.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
This is Toby Wagner, Sod Solutions, looking here at the new CitraZoy Zoysiagrass from the University of Florida. I'm here at a yard. I'm near like St. Augustine, Florida. This is interesting here. You can see going down in between the two houses, pretty tight space, but you can see on the right, you've got CitraZoy. On the left, you've got a coarser-bladed zoysia, and the density is just very notable. The CitraZoy just looks outstanding. It's kind of in between two houses. You can see the CitraZoy here. It's done very well. That's got good tolerance to disease. The backyard of this house is actually flooded, so you can tell that it can handle water, which is unusual for a Zoysiagrass. Developed by Dr. Kevin Kenworthy, and you can see just the contrast here between the CitraZoy on the right and a coarser-bladed zoysia on the left.
Toby, is there anything that you would want to add to that? We have you you could turn your mic on and just supplement whatever you already said in that video.
Well, that was a very interesting site in that Dr. Kenworthy, if you ever need a site for some torpedo grass sampling, that's probably where you want to go. I have never seen anything like it. The entire neighborhood, there was some vacant lots in this development, and this development was right across from the beach. So this was right across from A1A. And it was a very interesting site in that it just gave me confidence in that a grass that's laid into a new home that's gotten pretty much no maintenance at all. It looks like somebody's come through there a couple of times and they've mowed it, but all the same height as the coarser-bladed zoysia. And I really wasn't sure what that other zoysia was. It was just a coarser-bladed zoysia grass. So both at that site and the site that Jordan is referring to there, I guess one of the things that I've been looking for, I think that we're all looking for, is a finer textured zoysia for Florida that kind of looks like a northern grass. A lot of people are always asking about, they want a finer textured zoysia grass. At both of these sites, I mean, we're looking at kind of minimal maintenance. Now, a lot of fine textured zoysias, if you put them under high maintenance and fertility and you're spraying fungicide for disease, you can make them look really good. But we were looking for something, and I think Kenworthy understood this, that could be more widespread used across Florida, that would be a lower maintenance turf grass. And that's what I see here. I'm also confident that people who get this grass can put if they want this perfect lawn, they can really put a lot of high maintenance on it, and it could be just unbelievable. But what we're looking for is, how's it going to be maintained if it's just kind of thrown out there and it's maintained like an empire or like most people, handle so-called zoysia grass. So, and we're feeling more confident about that. A couple of comments on 1307. I've been following this a long time. There is actually a further northern site. We have some here in the Charleston area, and we've actually put sod down last year, and it's done very well. And we had an average winter. It was probably on the milder side, but we are looking at a lot of zoysias now for across the whole country. And from what I can see, the 1307 CitraZoy is a finer textured zoysia that is specifically suited for Florida. And that's what excites us. This isn't the last turf grass that you probably see coming out of this program, but right now it is the best zoysia that we see for Florida and Florida sod growers. A couple of things I wrote down here. There's no perfect turf grass, but this is a fine textured, again, a northern looking turf grass. And we get asked that all the time. Do you have something that looks more like the grasses we have up north? And then the second thing is the improved shade tolerance. I think that any zoysia that can be a lower maintenance turf grass that has, better shade tolerance than Empire, I think that's a big selling feature. The overall quality, I think, back when we used to do shows, people's eyes always go to the finer textured turf grass, no matter what samples that you have. So I think I'm feeling confident that now we have a University of Florida developed zoysia that has got that finer textured look that is also a very high quality turf grass. Disease tolerance. I mean, Jordan said it, but I just can't overemphasize how important that this is. I mean, we've had a very wet year all across the Southeast, and this grass has performed very well under a lot of water, a lot of humidity. The winter color, Fall color for tension, it's one of the things that we get asked about a lot on the Empire is, do you have a zoysia that can hold color longer and green up faster? I think we have improvements there as well. The last thing I'll say here is the blocking. I think that at both Tater and at JW, so we have kind of a Northern Florida, Southern Florida situation there. The comments that we have heard from the very beginning is that this is one of the best blocking turf grasses out there. That's a big deal for both the farm and the landscape industry. Again, this is the best overall zoysia for Florida specific that we see in this program, and we're very excited about it. So.
Okay. Well, thanks, Toby. I want you to hang around because we're going to take a look at the other yard that you and Jordan did down in South Florida really quick right here. We kind of talked about it. Jordan talked about the lack of maintenance on this site, but I want everybody to take a look at it real quick.
This is Toby Wagner, Sod Solutions, looking at CitraZoy, Zoysiagrass. This is the house near West Palm Beach, near Jupiter, Florida. Beautiful home, and the research number is 1307, and looks really good. Minimum about 1.5 inches, 2 inches mowing height. Just mowed with a regular rotary mower, 1307. Looks like a good one for South Florida, for all of Florida. Toby Wagner, Sod Solutions, looking at CitraZoy, Zoysiagrass.
Okay, so that was the site we had just talked about. Do you have anything to add to that about that South Florida site, Jordan or Toby, either one of you? I mean, we kind of detailed the maintenance issue.
Yeah.
I do real quick. The last part of that video, the left side of the driveway there is actually not irrigated at all. The homeowner's wife irrigated it for about the first 2 to 3 weeks. And then after that, they just let it go, and it has surprisingly done well. I know it's been wet this year, but they have had zero irrigation on there. Just their sprinklers don't reach over there. They didn't want to put it in. They had extra left over from when I sent it. So they decided to pull out on the side over there and put it in.
Yeah, I mean, I would just kind of add that I think that I'm really glad that Jordan got this site. I think that's really what we were looking for. Same thing up in Northern Florida, what Tater, kind of got done there. These are the situations that we need to be looking at. I mean, we can go to a site that's been well maintained and, babied and watered and all that, and that's not going to tell us, kind of real world situations or what's going to happen when you guys have acres of this and you're putting it out there into developments in the home site. So this site to me is a really good example of Southeast Florida and what we could expect when people do not do what they're supposed to do. And I think that what I saw is acceptable for the amount of input that they put in the grass. I mean, if you look at the surrounding landscapes, that yard looked, as good or better than any grass in there. And there was a mix of Floratam and Empire throughout the neighborhood. So I think it looks good. I think it's going to be a really good Zoysiagrass for Florida.
Okay. Thank you, Toby and Jordan, both for commenting on that. We're going to go into the center of the state, go up to Kevin and John Butemiller up there. We're grabbing some videos for us. This is from Kevin's own yard. And then we're going to take a look at John's yard.
We'll look at both videos together, and then we'll let Kevin speak about them a little bit.
Okay, here we go.
Good morning. It's October 27th at 8 a.m. and this is CitraZoy Zoysiagrass in the front lawn of Kevin Kenworthy. This area was planted in March of 2018, so roughly 2.5 years old. It's about 200 to 200 square feet. The majority of the front yard is St. Augustine grass, so the mowing height is on the tall side for Zoysiagrass. I'm sure we're 3+ inches, and this area hasn't been mowed in more than a week. Despite this, it's still fairly dense, especially considering the amount of shade. You see the fallen leaves. It's adjacent to a tall pine tree and a tall sweet gum that's losing its leaves. And then as we go across the road directly to the east, we see a lot of tall trees as well, blocking the morning sun. So we don't get any good direct sun in the morning. If we turn around, we go to the southern side of this area. We have tall trees back here as well, blocking any sun from southern exposure. The best light comes over here from the west and northwest, although it's not direct sun this time of the year because the sun comes from back here. It's a little bit lower on the horizon. So At this point in the year, we're not getting any really good direct sun on this area. With all these conditions and considering the rain and cloudy weather we've had this year, I've been very satisfied with this area. It's performed well over the 2.5 years. Yes, I believe St. Augustine grass would do a little bit better, but considering the factors, this Zoysiagrass has done quite well. CitraZoy. Hello, this is Kevin Kenworthy. I'm at the home of John Butemuller, and this is CitraZoy Zoysiagrass in his front yard. This was planted in March of 2018, so about 2.5 years old. You can see that it's doing quite well. It's looked very good from day one, and John's done a good job of taking care of it. You can see he's got a little bit of shade here from this Japanese cherry, and other than that, this location gets a fair amount of sun. He's not had very many issues with this area. I'm able to come over and see it frequently since it's so close to home for me in Gainesville. Again, CitraZoy Zoysiagrass.
All right, so real quick, before we get into Kevin offering any additional comments he might want to add about those two landscapes and taking any questions that any might have on those two landscapes, I want to do a quick poll for everyone that is in the meeting. Several of you, I recognize your emails. Some of you I don't. And so I want to be really clear after the fact about what farms were represented in this. So if you would go ahead, and it's really just a one question.
Well, it's the poll doesn't seem to be working. It's not there for some reason. So, all right, we may, yeah, sorry.
Anyways, so we'll follow up with everyone because I want to be real clear on some of these emails. Some of, like I said, almost all of you on this meeting, when I look at the RSVPs, I know who you are and I know what farm you are with. There are a couple, however, are new, and I want to be clear about that. So having said that, why don't we go ahead and turn it over to Kevin? Do you want to add anything from what was already said in those two videos?
Well, other than I'm really embarrassed that John Butemuller has better looking turf than I do in my front yard. But no, John's done a really nice job with his. You know, mine's getting mowed way too tall than what we would recommend for Zoysiagrass, but nonetheless, given those conditions, I'm very happy with that area. I know it doesn't look that great, but we had a period this year of about 6 weeks where we had rain and cloudy weather almost every single day, definitely the cloudy weather, if not the rain. And it was pretty difficult. I saw a lot of failed new sod installations around town, and grass that was struggling from lack of sunlight, too much moisture, disease, and then the caterpillar feeding. And I didn't treat that. That area didn't get treated for anything. And also remember that on Alachua County, we have very restrictive fertilizer protocols to follow, and we're only allowed to fertilize from March to June as well. So that's also something to consider. So yes, the area in my own yard doesn't look fantastic, but I would argue that most of us would think it's acceptable given the set of conditions in that particular location.
Very good.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Okay, so we're now, are there any pending questions, Justin?
No, nothing right now.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the kind of the operational side of things, licensing and seed stock. So with regard to licensing, generally with a joint release grass, there's an open licensing period. And a lot of times it would be 3 to 4 months, but because of the nature of the condition that we're in, this pandemic, Joint Release Committee decided to extend that to June 1st of 2020. So what we're going to do is we are going to be emailing everybody after this presentation. We will probably be mailing out certified mail, and then depending on the results of those two, we will then make farm visits. And obviously there's a little constraint in that third element, but we're able and willing to do that. We will. But the open license period for this grass is basically commencing today and ends on June 1st, 2020. 2021, and it's for all the TRF members. There's no license fee for the 20 TRF members. The royalty on the grass is 7%. The license is pretty standard for any of you who are currently licensed with sod solutions for any of our grasses. And ideal for the COVID environment we're working in, the license agreements can be signed and submitted to us digitally via HelloSign. So we will be able to email you the information. You'll provide us all the pertinent information that we need to construct the contract. We will construct the contract and send it to you, and you can digitally sign it. So if you have any questions on that, certainly send them in and we'll answer them. But having said that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the seed stock. So the initial seed stock protocol. Jordan and JW, they've got 3 acres of foundation material that is ready to go. The Joint Release Committee decided that this initial round of seed stock availability will be distributed the same way we did Citra Blue, which means you are going to submit a seed stock request form. What we're asking that is if you want to participate in this initial round of expansion, you'll be able to get truckload quantities. We're simply, and then take delivery when you want. You just got to coordinate that. But what we're asking for you to do is to submit your seed stock request form by December 1st. So you got a little bit of time on that. Justin's going to demonstrate here in a section exactly how to do that, but you're going to go to CitraZoy.com. You will see a seed stock request form, and then you will fill it out. We'll do that in a second. A signed license must be received before the seed stock request approval is granted, and that's very, very simple. So we'll send out the license agreements. You could send it back whether or not you request a seed stock or participate in this initial one. But if you submit an initial seed stock request form and we've not yet received the signed license agreement, then we'll send it out to you. So chicken or the egg, either way, we'll get to where we need to be. Truckload quantities are available. Jordan, the agreement that we have with the FFSP is that the material is going to be available at 50 cents a square foot, FOB JW. You'll need to arrange your own trucking. If you want Jordan to bring it to you, you guys could work on that price, but that's FOB. You are actually going to purchase the material from the FFSP, who then in turn will pay JW. This is a purchase that's going to be made from them because it's foundation material. And so, you know, I talked to Jordan. He alluded to the fact that he's got a sprig digger and he can make sprigs available to you if you want. So right now, the set price that we've agreed on with the FFSP is 50 cents a square foot for slabs. We've not yet come up with that price for sprigs. Justin right now is going to walk you through the process, and you'll see when you complete the seed stock request form, if you're involved in the Citra Blue program, very, very similar. The only difference is you also get to specify whether you would like to receive your seed stock as slabs or sprigs.
So I'm just going to go to CitraZoy.com for those of you who are wondering.
Yeah, CitraZoy.com directs you to a website. And so, Justin, if you scroll down, you'll see that blue button.
The plant stock request form is here. So then it's basically done as almost like a survey. You'll go in here to your form. You'll type a name, XYZ. You will type your mailing address in, whatever that might be. City. I don't think it's going to hold me to actually putting these actual in. I'll just put an actual state. And then, so then once you've entered your address, oh, sorry, I went the other way. Let me go back. Then we'll ask for latitude and longitude and field number.
And so for that, obviously that's for Phil Busey or anyone, Bostic or anyone on his team. We're asking for the southwest corner of the field. So we have that for our records. And then if you have named fields or paddocks, or, you know, everyone calls them differently. You could say field number 1 or the sorrel farm or whatever, so that we know.
Yep. And so then the square footage of seed stock request.
Yeah, generally, you know, like I said, truckload quantities are going to be available. So, you know, 8,000 to 9,000 square feet is what's been going out on truckloads, really just depending on how wet it is.
And then proposed acreage then to be planted.
Acreage, yeah.
So let's say 3, and then how do you want to plant? And then you can select either slabs or sprigs.
Correct.
Going to the next form, have your fields been fumigated per the SSCA requirements?
If you say yes, it's going to say, do you have proof of that? It says no. When do you plan to do it? So
Yep.
there's a,
You can select a date from the drop down.
what was the date?
And then please select a date you would like to pick up your plant stock will be the next question down below. And then finally, select your expected plant date. So we'll plan on Halloween. And then it asks for the MTA or license agreement will be sent to whichever address you choose
Right.
here. So again, we can put in just a test.
So again, MTA won't apply here. It'll just be the license agreement. So I'll make that change on there. That's still a remnant of the Citra Blue seed stock request form.
All right. And then that's it. You verify you're an actual human being with your wonderful Google algorithms. And then we got to do it again. I don't see any crosswalks. Does anybody else? I don't see any. And then you submit it. And then we'll be getting back to you and following up on that. That's the way you do it on the website, on the CitraZoy website.
So as a courtesy to JW, we're asking, and for planning purposes, we want to have all of those in hand by December 1. The sooner the better. But with 3 acres, truly 15 of you could all come forward and say, I want a truckload, and we'd be able to accommodate that. But it is on a first come, first serve. If you want more than a truckload, that's possible. But to begin with, let's just see what people submit. So that pretty much is the entirety of our presentation. Justin, are there any other outstanding questions?
I do have, let's see, one Q&A here. What are the certification requirements for CitraZoy? Would be the question.
This initial planting has to go through SSFP. So you're going to work with Phil Busey or Bostic and his team for this initial planting. And then that'll be your initial, let's just say 2 to 3 acres. That has to go through what you guys have always done. And then after that, you can continue to work with Southern Seed, or if you want to, you can use the SALT program, which has also been improved by the FFSP for expansion. So those are the choices, but those choices are later down the road. For the purposes of immediacy, for the sake of the seed stock that you're going to get in receipt of now, you cannot use the SALT program. You have to work with Phil and Bostic and company to get that initial foundation planted.
Do all the fields, another question coming in, do all the fields need fumigation?
For the initial, when you're, well, let's just say you went out there with Phil and you said, well, this, it's going to be normally whatever their protocols. If the field has been fallow for a couple years, or you have Roundup Ready other crop, and then there's a possibility it won't be. But I would defer that question to Phil and company because it's going to be whatever their program requires.
Okay. Another question. How long can you wait before taking planting material? May take time with alternative fumigation program to get it ready, to get the field ready.
That is correct. Submit your, well, here's the thing. If you're going to want to participate in this initial round, the assumption is that you're going to want to take receipt of it sooner than later. Does it make sense to submit a seed stock request form and say, I plan to take receipt of it in 2025? No, because that's not a pressing issue. But because it is a first come, first serve, if 7 farms come forward and say, we want 2 truckloads each, I want to be able to say yes to that on December 1st if no one else comes forward. If someone comes forward on December 1st and says, I want a truckload or more, but I'm not going to need it until for 18 months, I could also say yes to that because I know Jordan will be in a position to regrow it. So there is some flexibility, but there's no need to submit a seed stock request form for something that you know is going to be years down the road. If you're going to submit a seed stock request form, you'll be asked the question, when do you want it? And presumably it's going to be within the months ahead of time, perhaps not the years ahead of time. But regardless, June 1st is the deadline for signing the contract. So I don't see any reason for any of the 20 farms not to sign the contract, regardless of when you're going to take the material. I would sign it, get that done. You guys paid for it. It's value. You're going to want to sign for that and have it. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is if you want seed stock and want to participate in this early one, submit your seed stock request form.
Kevin's asked, it was asking if it's possible to have Dr. Bostic actually comment on this. I think we can turn his mic on if you want to give it a try.
Yeah. If he is there and able to, more than happy to have him.
Yeah, Dr. Bostic, can you, is your mic working? And you're welcome to turn your camera on too, if you'd like.
Yes, I'm here.
So I guess, do you want to answer some of those questions?
Well, I guess I would need maybe to go back and say that from the standpoint of the seed certification program, Southern Seed Certification, obviously fumigation is the quickest manner in order to get approved, your land approved and get planted. We strongly suggest fumigation, especially for the foundation seed program. We do, however, offer this alternative to fumigation, which would require 3 field inspections spaced out over a period of time. So it would take almost at least 6 months or so to be able to be qualified to plant if you're using the alternative fumigation program, using Roundup or some of those other herbicides that may be able to take care of those problems. Christian mentioned another program, and I'm just not familiar with. It must be something that is this SALT program. He might want to explain that a little bit further.
A couple of the other questions that came in here, obviously the material that people would be receiving from JW would be foundation, and when you plant it, it'll be registered. And then you're going to work with Bostic and Company to get that initial planting done. Once that is grown in, and you want to expand that 2 acres, 20 to 1, and you want to go to let's just say 40, 50 acres, that's where you have a choice to make. You're either going to continue to work with Southern Seed, or you can work with a program that we've developed, SALT, Sod Solutions Accredited Licensed Turfgrass Program. And what I can do, rather than trying to explain all those details in the confines of this forum, because I don't have all my notes in front of me, I will send out the SALT program to you, but it's very, very similar in many ways. We looked at all the different programs that various states have. And it borrows from a lot of our experience over the years in how we've maintained quality control, genetic purity. But one of the reasons that we developed this program is because in some of the states in which we do business, there is no certifying agency. There is no ASCA organization, for example, California. So
Yes, there is.
Oh, is there?
Well, California has a seed certification program.
Okay.
Whether or not they have a turf program or not, I don't know.
I don't believe they do. I could be wrong. But I know we have growers out there that have Celebration and Latitude, and we have to work with them on that.
I understand.
So anyway, so this was really a matter of, mothers, it needs the mother of invention. So we had a need. We were already visiting farms regularly, mostly for the purpose of genetic purity. We threw in their quality ratings. We were telling farms, this is where you can do better. So we have a program in there, and I can share the details with everyone as part of the follow-up to this meeting that kind of gets into the details. But suffice to say, to begin with, you're going to work with Dr. Bostic and Phil on this initial planting. Once that's grown in and you choose to expand, you have a choice. You can continue to work with their program, and there's really no reason not to.
May I add one thing, please?
Yeah.
And that is that we would need an application for certification from each one of the farms. So, and that is typically due in our office by the 1st of February. We realize that people will be planting throughout the year. So, we can accept the application as they begin to make their plans. We would like to be able to do a field inspection prior to planting if at all possible. And then, but we will need an application for certification for each farm each year.
Okay. Dr. Bostic, when someone submits a seed stock request form, just like with the Citra Blue program, you and Phil are going to get emailed, or anyone else in your office that you want to, will receive an email with all the details of the seed stock request form. And that would give your team the ability to check and see, does the farm who is requesting seed stock request for CitraZoy, do they have, are we already working with them? Are they already in the program? If they are, then it's just a matter of going out there and working with them on the details. And if they're not, I guess that's a whole other level of administration that would need to kick in and perhaps postpone things a little bit.
That's right. We certainly would also like for Carol Folder, who handles our paperwork and certification applications, those kind of things. We'd like for her to be included in receiving any of the emails regarding the production of this foundation stock, or registered or certified, you know, with any of the farms.
That's very doable. I'll be sure, I'm sure we have her email, but I'll make sure she's included on that email distribution when someone submits a seed stock request form. So are there any other questions, Justin?
I have no more questions.
Okay, so that concludes the presentation of all the data that we intended to share with you. I regret that we weren't able to be together, but I do hope that we were able to share with you all the information we would have been able to otherwise. So thank you for joining us. And I will say this, that next week, the FTGA has an event on Monday, and the Florida Association of Landscape Architects has an event on Saturday, and we will be introducing CitraZoy to the Florida professional market next week. If you really think a little bit about the Citra Blue model, in October of 2018, that would be like if it was a beer, I guess the born on date for Citra Blue would have been October 3rd, 2018. We introduced it at the landscape show, didn't have a stitch of grass other than the slabs that we were showing there. A year later, October 2019 landscape show, we had the first commercially available pallet of Citra Blue, which we gave away as a donation. And then fast forward a year to October 2019, the landscape show that did not happen. You know, we have 400 to 500 acres of production, and we're in rapid expansion. And by October of 2021, I expect we're going to be in excess of 1,000 acres. So to compare it, basically the born on date for CitraZoy, the first time the trademark will officially be used will be next Monday at the TPF, or the FTGA event. And then, you know, we're in a much better spot with CitraZoy, because if you recall, when Citra Blue launched, everyone was restricted to only 6 pallets of grass. It was a constraint that we had to deal with. That is not the case here. Every farm is going to be able to take truckload, at least a truckload quantity. And depending on the number of people who submit a request by December 1st, you might be able to take truckloads. So I would expect CitraZoy to be able to expand at a much faster rate. But I'm glad we were able to get together today. I'm glad that we are where we wanted to be a year ago in spite of everything. So kudos to everyone on this team for working together and collaborating in spite of the challenging circumstances. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you soon in person. Take care.